All right, so Pudding Finger Ron, Meatball Ron, Ron DeSanctimonious, whatever you want to call this guy, he is in some trouble right now. Okay, keep in mind, Ron DeSantis has not even declared for the 2024 presidential election, the GOP primary showdown that he would inevitably have to go participate in against the former president Donald J. Trump, and yet Trump is still launching some pretty gruesome attacks against Little Ronnie over the last couple of weeks as the speculation is continuing to boil up. So, the most recent advertisement, which is what I'm going to focus on in this video, is honestly one of the best and simultaneously one of the grossest political advertisements that I've ever seen in my entire life. So we're going to watch it here in a second, but just a little bit of backstory in terms of where this Pudding Finger Ron nickname actually comes from. So here from Yahoo News, they say, a report in the Daily Beast last month cited two sources, not one, two sources, who said that DeSantis has a propensity to devour food during meetings. Okay, that's fine, that's normal. And had once eaten pudding with 3 fingers. Not a spoon, not one, not two, but 3 fingers. Just raw dogging that pudding straight into his mouth, apparently. They say during a private plane trip from Tallahassee to Washington, D.C. in March of 2019, DeSantis enjoyed a chocolate pudding dessert by eating it with 3 of his fingers, according to 2 sources familiar with the incident. You can't do that, man. You can't do that. Maybe if you're, having some struggles and you're down, you're doing, you're in a dark place, you're down bad, and you're by yourself in the comfort of your home, and you're watching some TV show or something. Maybe then, in a really, really dark place, you could make an excuse to be eating pudding with your fingers, I guess. Maybe not even then. But on a plane, with some of your colleagues, publicly, during meetings, completely unacceptable, man. Not presidential material that we're looking at here. So that's basically the allegation that we're talking about. And so Trump and his team, obviously posted here by the so-called MAGA War Room on Twitter, even though Donald Trump still hasn't come back to Twitter personally, even though Elon Musk allowed him back on Twitter technically, he's still not back, he's still on Truth Social. But the MAGA War Room released this advertisement that the Trump team came up with, basically attaching the pudding finger allegations with also some allegations that Ron DeSantis was previously in favor of cutting programs like Social Security and Medicare. So let's just go ahead and jump into this advertisement here. Again, warning, this is kind of disgusting in a lot of ways here.
Ron DeSantis loves sticking his fingers where they don't belong. And we're not just talking about pudding. DeSantis has his dirty fingers all over senior entitlements, like cutting Medicare, slashing Social Security, even raising our retirement age. Tell Ron DeSantis to keep his pudding fingers off our money. Oh, and somebody get this man a spoon.
Make America Great Again Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
Okay, so yeah, that's where we're at right now. Again, Ron DeSantis has not even declared for this election, and they're coming up with advertisements like this, okay? Get that grimy little disgusting pudding finger Ron out of our social programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of those ones, okay? So on the one hand, like, it's not a bad advertisement, honestly. It's kind of like a little bit like more sort of in the online social media space. I'm not sure that most people, just like average Americans, would even get what this is in reference to, which might be a little bit off-putting to some people, but just at the base level, I mean, it's not that bad, right? It's kind of gross, but at the same time, it's kind of making a good point, and I'm impressed that they managed to connect the pudding finger story, which is just like this weird tangential story that isn't really like substantive in any way, shape, or form, and they managed to somehow connect that with a real, genuine, substantive issue, which is the ongoing Republican attacks on some of these core social programs like Social Security and Medicare. Okay, so that part of it is kind of based. Now, keep in mind at the same time, Donald Trump is somebody who has previously, when he was the president, been open to discussions surrounding cutting some of those programs, at least like pushing austerity on some of those programs. So it's not like he has like a principled stance against cutting Social Security and Medicare. He just knows now how deeply unpopular that kind of a move would be, and so he's trying to weaponize that against Ron DeSantis. Donald Trump does not, in my opinion at least, really have any core principles or values or like policies policies that he is like 100% standing behind. He's basically the kind of guy who's just like, okay, what is going to get me applause in the short term? What is going to, boost my ego in the short term? And that's really what he's mostly focused on. So I don't think it's like, oh, I'm ideologically opposed to slashing some of these programs. I think he just doesn't care one way or another, and this just seems like it's politically advantageous for him in this specific moment. So we have that aspect of it, okay? So it's heating up. The primary showdown is heating up, even though Ron isn't even in the primary yet. But we also have stuff like this, okay, clearly showing that to some extent, Ron DeSantis is at least gearing up for some sort of a showdown with Trump. They say here from Yahoo, again, from NBC News, really, Ron DeSantis' team tries to stop Florida Republicans from endorsing Trump. So apparently people from Ron DeSantis' own home state are, preemptively endorsing Donald Trump for the 2024 election. Ron DeSantis doesn't really like that. Now, he's put himself in kind of like a shitty position here where he's just trapped, because at this point, he could declare and he could end up running against Donald Trump, and then you're going to continue getting clobbered over the head with some of these nicknames, the Ron DeSanctimonious, the Meatball Ron, the Pudding Finger Ron, advertisements like that. Trump, this is a very good political move to be attacking him over the cuts to Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. Those are, great political moves on Donald Trump's part. So you could declare and you could go that route and maybe risk like destroying the future of your political career by directly challenging Trump. At this point, I don't think there's any chance that Ron DeSantis really has of winning the GOP primary unless Donald Trump literally like drops dead tomorrow or something like that. But so that's basically the first path that Ron DeSantis could take, or because he's sort of been like floating this possibility of him running for so long but hasn't officially done it, the other pathway that he could take is not declaring, pushing it off to maybe 2028 or something, where even at that point, we've seen some reports that Donald Trump isn't even necessarily not going to run in 2028 if he loses in 2024. So you'd still face that pressure, but also you're facing the pressure of like, well, you just look like a bitch now because you were floating this 2024 run. Trump attacks you a couple of times and you just completely back down, and you're sort of losing a little bit of clout, right? You're losing a little bit of credibility if you go that pathway. So Ron DeSantis, not making the best political moves recently. I mean, he's kind of looking like a little bitch relative to Trump. Now, obviously, I'm absolutely no fan of Donald Trump in pretty much any way, shape, or form outside of the entertainment value that he provides for us in this, dark political time that we are in. But, I kind of give him a little thumbs up when he's, coming out here and destroying the political ambitions of an outright fascist and a demon like Ron DeSantis. So to that extent, good job, Donald Trump, I guess. Now, obviously I think that Ron DeSantis would probably be the better candidate from the Republican perspective in terms of the chances of him winning against Biden or whoever the Democrats end up putting up. I think that Ron DeSantis would have a better chance in a general election, but again, at this point, it's just like he doesn't really have a chance to take on Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. So we also had this aspect of it, which was, very deeply disappointing to all of my, major Mike Pompeo fans out there who watch this channel. Apparently, as pointed out here by Jordan, Mike saw the Pudding Finger ad and knew that he just couldn't handle the smoke. Okay, so Mike Pompeo, he was sort of floating a run during this primary season, and apparently he's completely backing off of that. So, obviously I know you guys are devastated to hear that news, but Mike Pompeo, he's not running against big old Donnie over here. But we also have this this primary polling data, which I thought was pretty interesting. This is the most up-to-date that I could get my hands on, at least here from Morning Consult from just a couple of days ago, about a week ago at this point. We have 2024 GOP primary tracker, and Donald Trump sitting up here at 56%. 56% to Ron DeSantis at 23%. Okay, so at this point, Trump has like a 30-point lead over Ron DeSantis in this primary showdown, right? You have Mike Pence, who has, I think, literally been polling at 7% in every single poll that I've seen since he's basically, floated the idea of him running. It doesn't seem like he's going up or down from that 7%. We have Nikki Haley down here at 4%, just kind of pathetic and sad that she thinks that she has a legitimate chance of winning. We have Tim Scott. He also recently sort of semi-declared 1%. Mike Pompeo, obviously, he's out at this point. But again, it's just like the lesson here is that nobody has a chance against Donald Trump in the Republican primary, okay? The only person who even mildly has a chance is Ron DeSantis. But even then, like, you could have every single person below him drop out and endorse him right now, and those numbers still would not add up to beating Donald Trump. So at this point, it's almost like it's a wrap. Like, everybody go home. Trump has secured this, barring some sort of like a major, outside factor that comes in here to disrupt that process. Now, again, this is why this is a good advertisement from Donald Trump, just at a baseline level, and also kind of an interesting admission from somebody who is running within the Republican Party. Okay, keep in mind, obviously we have Kevin McCarthy. Just a couple days ago, he was at the New York Stock Exchange. He's still pushing this debt ceiling fight, this debt ceiling showdown, which is entirely bullshit, and I've explained why so many times on this channel. But he's trying to use this debt ceiling showdown in order to push some cuts to some entitlement programs, whether he means Medicare, whether he means Social Security, whether he means food programs, or anything to materially improve the lives of poor people in the United States. It's unclear at this point. Okay, we don't know specifically where he's trying to make cuts, but they're trying to make cuts. And the reason why they sort of backed off of the cuts to Social Security and Medicare is because of polling data like this. So here from the AP, they say wide opposition to Social Security and Medicare cuts. So you go basically base by base here, like what are the American people in favor of in terms of addressing the issue of funding for these programs? How would they want to see this situation resolved? By far, I mean, the only one that even has marginally a positive approval rating here is the thing that Bernie Sanders has been talking about relentlessly over the last couple of months that I've been covering on this channel: increasing taxes on households earning over $400,000 a year to pay for Medicare. Same exact principle goes for Social Security, right? We have these arbitrary caps where it's like, okay, above this certain income threshold, you no longer have to pay into these programs. You remove those caps from the equation, and these programs are funded till the end of time, okay, essentially. So there's not really a problem with funding for these programs. There's a problem with a lack of taxation on the wealthiest Americans in this country. And obviously, the American people are in favor of getting rid of those arbitrary caps. The other things that have been proposed, mostly by conservatives, but also some liberals as well, raising the eligibility age for Medicare benefits from 65 to 67. Keep in mind, the French people are out in the streets, like, trying to topple their fucking government. Not maybe literally, but millions of people, okay, have been participating in these protests over the last couple of months at the idea of raising their retirement age from 62 to 64. We're talking about from 65 to 67. Okay, we don't have people out in the streets, you wish that we would see that, but at the same time, there is obviously overwhelming opposition to that idea. So you have 15% approval for raising the retirement age, 70% are opposed to that. Again, increasing Medicare premiums, overwhelmingly unpopular. Raising the eligibility age for Social Security benefits from 67 to 70. Okay, overwhelmingly unpopular. Reducing the size of Social Security benefits, overwhelmingly unpopular. So, I mean, listen, again, the Republican Party has sort of like been trying to slash these programs for decades, basically since their inception within the United States of America. And now we're at this point where, people are not economically doing that well. And so they rely on these programs. I mean, we're talking about millions and millions and millions of people who rely on these incredibly popular, incredibly successful programs that we have here in the United States, some of the crumbs that we give to average working class people in order to just survive and get by. And so Republicans have sort of painted themselves into a bad place right now, where they have to sort of balance this idea that, like, oh, the national debt is this impending doom that we are facing as a country, and if we don't slash some of these programs, then we're just going to absolutely implode. And they're trying to balance that with the reality that cutting some of these massively popular programs would be an absolute political disaster for themselves. Now we have, Donald Trump putting out advertisements about Pudding Finger Ron and how he's getting his dirty little pudding fingers into these programs, and he's still leading Ron DeSantis, who's not even in this race yet, by like 30 percentage points. So, I mean, listen, take this, for what you will. I think at this point, again, I would say that it's a wrap in terms of who is the leading candidate, who is by far the favorite to win the GOP primary in 2024. And maybe Republicans, even if Donald Trump is not necessarily ideologically principled in his stance against cutting those things, maybe Republicans could do a little bit of like inner reflection in terms of why those kinds of advertisements, even about something as silly as like dipping your fingers into raw pudding, okay, why that is so effective amongst the American people.
Everyone is saying good politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying